Today is October 11th, 2017. My name is Kate Dolansky, and I have here with me Mr. Clifford Woost. We are in Parma, Ohio, doing an interview for the Veterans History Project in Congressman Renacci's office. So, Cliff, if you would mind starting off, where and when were you born?
I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, West Side. Actually, I was born in a house.
Really?
On 4011 Whitman Avenue, in the back bedroom
Oh my goodness.
at home. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is something you don't hear about happening a lot.
No, back when I was born, a lot of people didn't go to the hospital. My aunts would come in and help, families.
Wow. Wow, that is something. So then who were your parents?
My father was Richard Woost, and my mom was Sarah.
Okay, and what were their occupations? What did they do?
My dad, he drove a milk truck during the war, and my mom was just a mom for when I was born, and then after a while she went to work at the post office, but when I was born she was...
Did you have any siblings?
I have an older sister,
Okay.
and then I have a younger brother.
Did your brother serve in the
No,
military at all?
he was too young.
Okay, so just you.
My mom had got divorced and got remarried.
Okay, so he was from the other marriage.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, what were you doing before you entered the service?
Well, probably it's a long story, but I was 10 when my parents got divorced, and I bounced around a lot. I lived with my mom, with my dad, and my mom got remarried again. By the time I was 16, I told her I hated the guy's guts, and I told her, you married him, I didn't, you lived with him, and I went to New York City and got a job in a sleeping room.
In a sleeping room?
Yeah.
Is that like hotel?
No. People in houses rent you a room in their house.
Oh gosh.
And I worked in a machine shop and made $40 a week. And the sleeping room was 10, and then by the time they took the taxes out, I think I took home $37, and that was in 1960, 61,
Wow.
So after about a year of that, because I had quit school and hadn't finished a lot of it, and when I came back home, I said, well, I'm going to go back home and I'm going to give it a good try. I want to go back to school because I don't want to be working in a machine shop and doing all the dirty jobs. And by the time I got home, I wasn't home 3 days. Me and my stepfather got into it. So.
And how old were you then, maybe?
17.
17.
So I told my mom, sign the papers. I'm going in the Navy.
Wow. So you enlisted then?
Yeah.
And why did you choose the Navy?
To tell you the truth, I don't like ties. Okay, and the Marines and the Army area, the Navy comes down here and your ties hanging. I never liked nothing tied around my neck.
So that's why you chose the Navy.
Yeah, that plus I didn't want to be sleeping on no ground, and I wasn't really a camper or none of that stuff. So
at least you'd be on a ship.
Right, yeah. Well, I'm gonna have a warm meal, and I'm gonna have a bunk, and I'm gonna just
Right.
And then I got in, and then I got in the gunboats and LCMs, and I slept on top of diesel engines and froze, and never really had bunks.
And here you
ate K rations out of K ration cans, and when the ship was traveling, you did. But when we were on maneuvers, I stayed in the boats most of the time.
Wow.
So
that is your initial idea of what it would be like, didn't
turn
out so much.
Right. Yeah.
Well, when you first joined, do you remember the day when you went to training?
I remember we went in. We left Cleveland. We got to Great Lakes about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and everybody had bunks. So I had a top bunk, and everything was cool until then. About 5:30 in the morning, some idiots got a Coke bottle inside of a garbage can. Clank, 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 clank.
Oh my
gosh. I'm in the top bunk. I jumped straight out and hit the ground.
Oh.
And I figured, oh my God, is this how it's gonna be?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know if you ever hear a Coke bottle in a garbage can, but it's loud, especially when you're sound asleep. Your own head's 3 or 4 hours sleep.
Oh my gosh.
So then after that, you know, I mean, we had, you know, it was kind of rough because before that, I mean, I tell the kids now, if you're going to be going in the service, start running now.
Get in shape.
Get in shape to run because you know, I mean, I was younger and I had worked in jobs and I used to caddy when I was a kid and I had good leg muscles and it wasn't too bad on me, but a lot of kids it was hard on them, you know.
Getting in that rhythm of being
right. No, because after you're in, I mean, you're in, you're doing maneuvers, you're doing this, you're doing that, and sometimes you're running 20 miles a day.
Wow.
You know, and you got to run, and you got, you know, I mean, and then you got kids that you just meet, and because it was pretty funny. I had joined in Cleveland, but when I had left here and went to New York, my Social Security number was from New York. Because I had got it there, I hadn't had a job here.
Right.
So it was funny because the DI said, anybody from New York over there, is all right, empty your pockets, take out all the switchblades and knives and everything out of your pocket, you don't need them. and I thought that was funny.
That was funny.
You know.
So that was like the very first day of training then?
Yeah, and then like I say, then you go and you know, you start doing this and that and different things. You're training and you,
was it all on ships though for you?
No. The Great Lakes is all in barracks. You're in barracks, and then you got like probably 40, maybe 50 kids all in one, and they're in that unit. And then,
so what was a typical day in training?
You got up, you ate, and then you know, you stand in front of your locker with your clothes and everything, and then what you got to do is you got to take your T-shirt like this, you got to turn it inside out, and if there's any dirt in there, then you don't get beat, but all your guys have to start marching. Because they want to, you know, they take a credit card and run it up and down your face. And if you can hear it make any noise, you know, then everybody's in trouble. So if one guy screws up, everybody's in trouble. So you know, and there was a couple guys that screwed up, and you know, I remember one day we had to get up in the middle of the night and pack our sea bag. The sea bag like 80 some pounds, and we had to march with it all night.
How many hours?
It was just all night, yeah.
Wow.
You know, because usually you got an M1 16 pounds, but sea bag is, because some guy was dirty and scroungy, you know.
Oh my gosh.
So they took a kayak brush to his back, his back was bleeding by the time they got done with him. Some of it. Because, I mean, once it's a team, once one guy screws up, then they all, you know. So you try to keep it, you know, and then the guys that's a little slow, you try to always help them.
Really?
You know, because a lot of times it ain't their fault. You know, but if you know, you help them, and then
pull them along.
The chief petty officer I had won. There's 17 flags you can win for all the you know, the 10 or 20 barracks or whatever they are. There's 17 flags you can win: drilling, marching, running, all that other stuff. Well, the chief petty officer we had, he always won all 17 of them. So he was as strict as you could be. I mean, you couldn't believe how strict he was, you know, because he wanted to. It was his pride. He had to win all them flags, you know.
Wow. So
we did, you know, and then we marched and drilled, and you know, and then we had a maneuver. We had to crawl on the ground, up and down nets, and crawl up and climb up this and climb up that and crawl, you know, just, you know. And I asked him. I said, why? I says, I want to be on a ship. Why do I need to crawl on the ground, underneath nets, up and down, climb up and down? They said, well, if the ship ever sinks, you have to know how to live. I said, if I'm 3,000 miles out in the middle of the ocean and I make it to land, I think I'm going to know how to live. You know, I mean, to me it was dumb, you know. But that's what they did, you know. They had to have the training for everybody doing that, you know. And then finally then I did graduate, and I came home for 2 weeks. Leave, and then I reported aboard the ship, and I hadn't even put my clothes away yet, and they would come over the loudspeaker. We're leaving tomorrow to go down to Guantanamo Bay. The Russians are bringing nuclears, and we have to go get a load of Marines. I just got there, and I'm thinking, it's been 20 years since they had a war. I go in, and as soon as I get there, to me, we're in a war because, they're talking about the Russians and nuclears and stuff, so we had to go down to Lejeune and pick up a load of Marines. Then we went down to Guantanamo Bay, and we hung out down there for 2 or 3 weeks with the Marines, but then nothing really happened because, everything. But, you don't know. You don't know at the time, I'm thinking, I'm at war already, and I just got here,
Right. So there's some fear?
Well, yeah. You're an 18-year-old kid, and like I said, my whole life I watched the war movies, because in my generation it was either cowboys or war movie. You see Audie Murphy and some of the cowboys and stuff. So, and you see what happened, and you figure, well, I'm here now, and like I say, and then after that, then we came back, and then came back to Norfolk, and then we went to the Mediterranean, to Naples, and the ship left Norfolk, and about a day and a half out, there's 2 main boilers. One of the main boilers blew, and we still had the steam. We had to, so we had to stand 4 on and 4 off for 33 days straight.
And this was out to the Mediterranean?
To get there. It takes 33 days for us to get there because it doesn't go straight. Ships circle because they don't want the submarines to find them. So the whole fleet will circle. And with one boiler, and then we had to stand 4 hours on, 4 hours off.
On guard?
No, on our jobs.
Okay.
I was down in the engine room. So.
Okay.
So that's 4 hours sleep. You don't really get 4 hours sleep because by the time you get off, you want to shower, you want to eat. 4 on and 4 off for 33 days, you're really getting tired after that because you're not,
Yeah.
So by the time we got to Naples, Italy, then they let us off an hour earlier. I thought that was really nice of them,
Yeah.
Just all that, and then we go hang out and.
What did you do in the free time then?
On the ship? Play cards, show craps, play pong, play tonk, do whatever, They had a movie once a night, but, most of the time the movies were like, older movies and stuff. You never really got any good ones, and the guys are always looking for movies with hot chicks in them. Because, you're young and you're, so anything that had a hot chick, they would go watch it,
That's funny.
Yeah.
Good entertainment then.
So when you get over to Italy, and then we went to Italy, France, Turkey, Spain, Greece.
Wow.
And then.
You saw so much of the world over there.
Well, actually, to tell you the truth, I was in the cat house more than I was anywhere.
You were where?
The cat houses.
Oh.
That's where the women are.
Yeah.
You're young and you want to be with the ladies. So, and most of the time, I didn't see a lot of sights.
Okay, yeah.
You got a pocket full of money and there's ladies there.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to be honest.
After being on the ship all this time,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then we came back, and then we were back about maybe a month and a half. Then we went down to Caribbean, did a Caribbean cruise. And
wow.
Then that was, I made 3 May cruises that was 6 months long each, and then 4 Caribbean cruises. Like I say, we were in Panama during the Panama crisis, and Guantanamo Bay during the Bay of Pigs. So I had 3 years and 1 month sea duty,
Wow. Could you talk about the Panama crisis a little bit?
Well, we was probably 20 miles off shore. We really didn't see nothing, but we had the Marines with us just in case we had to take them in to land them,
Okay.
I mean, we didn't see a lot of anything, but, because that's when they were trying to close the Panama Canal.
Okay.
And we had the Marines out there so we could land them and
So a lot of what, it seems like the Navy was doing was kind of just transporting the Marines.
Yeah, that's what we did,
Yeah, okay.
We had 6 trucks, Jeeps.
On the boat, on the ship?
On the ship,
wow.
yeah. And then we had food,
and you know, bullets and all the stuff that the Marines needed for
Right.
when they got on the beach. Because we had 8 LCMs, which is a Mike boat, and 6 Papa boats, which are smaller. Then we had the captain's boat and the officer's boat.
Okay.
And on the ship, you had the boats were sitting up on the decks, and then the other ones were sitting on the side of the ship. And then you had big cranes, and the cranes would lift the boats up and set them in the water. And then the Marines would crawl down the nets and go in the boats. And then we'd take them to the shore, and then they would practice their maneuvers. But if you could take your hand and smack it like that flat, when them boats hit the beach, they would suck. And I was a diesel mechanic on the boats, and you had to get the engines in reverse to back it off the beach. So you're kicking up dirt, you're kicking up sand, the sand traps are getting, so you had to be down in the engine room, you know, a lot, trying to, you know. And it was practice, but still, there was a lot of times when the guys would come down the nets, and it would drop down 20 feet, or up 20 feet, especially on a rough, because you figure like this, you got a little boat, and they'd go to step off the net, and then the ship would drop down, or it would come up, the little boat would come up and smack them and crash and hit, you know. It was...
Were there any injuries from that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
And I once they loaded the truck and stuff in, you had a big hook that was hooked in there, and I had to grab the hook and pull the hook out before it came up and smashed my hands, you know.
Oh my gosh.
So, you know.
That sounds very tricky.
Well, it was, you know.
Yeah.
You had to learn to do it. I could never understand why we're doing rough weighing, because people get hurt, but you had to train that, because if you're in a war, they don't pick the right days to do it, you know.
Right, they can't control the weather then.
No, and then we did that, and then, like I say, the med cruises, and then one time I was in my boat, and what you do is you throw a line up to the ship, and you put both engines in reverse, and that holds the boat into the ship, as the ship, because the ship's still going, it's not sitting still, you know,
Right.
and it holds it into the ship. And then the Marines are coming down the nets. So one time, I was number 9 was the last one on the left side, and the ship came up out of the water, and my boat came up underneath it, and the screw of the ship hit my boat and put a big gouge in it.
Oh man.
And I'm taking on water like crazy, because I mean, I'm out in the middle of the ocean. It's freezing cold. It's like 34 degrees. It's raining. It's and I'm taking on water, and I called up, says, I'm taking on water. We said, Circle will figure out what you want to do with you. And I used it for a couple 4-letter words when I yelled at them. And I told them, because there was an LSDs, and the Ds, what happened to the ships of the Ds, the back of the ship would take on water, and it would go down. So I had enough, it was probably maybe from here, you know, maybe a couple 100 feet away from where I was. So we took the ship, and we ran inside the LSD.
Oh.
And that saved us from sinking it, you know.
Oh my gosh.
But when he told me to circle and he'd figure out what he wanted to do with me, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to stay alive.
Yeah, seriously.
You know, I mean, because you got 15, 20-foot waves bobbing up and down.
And was that just in training?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, all I did was we trained the Marines to you know, that's what we did.
So what happened? Did you have to get that patched? Like,
No, well, we pulled it in there, and then they lifted the ship up enough to where they could drain the water out of it, and then they welded it all back up, and I got my diesel engines running, and then, you know, I stayed on the ship that night while they welded, and then went back to my ship, and
Wow.
you know, but it's just, you had to think quick to stay alive.
It sounds like it. So then how old were you at that point?
Let's see, probably like 19, 20 in that area. You know.
Yeah. That is just crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So then, what was your main duty on the ship?
Well, when I first went in, I worked down the engine room.
Okay.
And then, because I had signed up that I wanted to be a machinery repairman, and they stuck me down the engine room, and I hated it, because it was boring, and with the big steam turbines in there, it echoes so bad. It's like wah 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 wah. But you can imagine 1,000 times with and this steam turbines are just making, and then when I first went in, the bilges is the bottom half of the boat, and you're down there, and they make you clean it, and they make you do all the dirty, rotten jobs, and then when you're on watch down in the engine room, you have a board. It's about 30 foot long, and there's gauges on the board. You have to watch this pressure, that, this, and right in the middle of the gauges is a clock. And when you're trying to watch the gauges, you try not to look at the clock.
Right.
Because 4 hours standing there is a long time.
Right.
It's like, it's boring, Because I know when I first was down there, man, I was down there, I'm doing this. And I figured, well, it's 2 hours away, only why it's like 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
So.
Oh, I can't imagine.
And then, like I say, once that boiler blew, we were working, and the first trip we made, So after about 6 months of that, I went up to the sick bay. They're driving me nuts down. I can't do this no more.
The sick bay?
Yeah, just told them I didn't play sick, but I mean I was.
Oh, I see.
I'm going crazy because it would echo in your head so bad, and then my ears are still bad from that.
Really, because they're so loud.
Oh yeah. So then they put me in a boat group, which was the LCM, the Mike boats that hauled the Marines to the beach, and then I had my own personal boat, and then I took care of it and made sure the engines were running, and then whenever it had the maneuvers, I had to be on that boat, and then you leave, the Marines come down, you load them up, you take them to the beach, and you come back and you go get more.
Okay.
And you play like a landing. They practice landings,
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of guys got hurt practicing. I can tell you they didn't. They did,
Right.
And then at one time I had to stay on the beach and stay there overnight because if anybody got hurt, then I had to bring them back to the ship.
Oh wow.
So I had to spend a night like that, and then one of the times is when I got hurt, we were in a Jeep, and the Jeep flew over. And I hurt my back and hip, and I woke up the next day in sick bay.
Wow.
So I was in sick bay for a couple of days, and then.
That's on the ship, though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's how I got hurt, and then.
Oh man. And so you've had problems with that ever since.
Yeah, I had, but when I'm younger, you live through it, and then as I got older, I lived through it,
Yep, absolutely. Wow. So. How often would you say were you doing training then while you were on the ship, with these Marines? How often? Once a week, a few times a week, or was it like?
Well, when we're in port, we really ain't training because we don't have Marines. So when we pick them up, you go to the Mediterranean, you have landings.
Okay.
So you practice one. When we were in Italy, we went to Crete, and we went. 4 different places where they landed and practiced,
Okay.
And then the ship would pull into port, and we get leave at Italy, France, Turkey, Spain, Greece,
Mm-hmm.
But we went to Crete and some of the places where they had landings,
I see. Okay.
And then after 6 months of that, then we'd come back home and drop them off, and then we get a couple of weeks off, and then we'd go somewhere else, and then we go down to the Caribbean, and we had practice landings down there.
Okay.
And then one of the trips down the Caribbean, it just so happens that somehow a crescent wrench flew into one of the steam turbines, and the ship broke, and they had to tie up to the pier for 3 months.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So we had to tie up to the pier. We had no jobs, nothing to do
for 3 months
in the Caribbean.
Wow. And beautiful weather and.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what it was is you were never allowed. The officers were allowed to wear civilian clothes, but the enlisted weren't.
Really?
So I had this little girl I knew in a bar, and I had some civilian clothes in there, and I used to go down and hang out with her. And then the first class we had was pretty cool because you had to be in by 12 o'clock at night. So a lot of times he would cover for us, and we just spend the night overnight, And he'd cover for his guys because he was pretty good to us,
Wow, that's nice.
We always came
freedom.
through for him,
Yeah.
And
did you make a lot of good friends?
Yeah. I mean, people that's acquaintances, friends. I don't see any of them now, but
Okay.
You know, I mean, there's guys that you meet and you click with and you enjoy spending time. And I know a couple of buddies used to come home with me, and because we used to, well, we left North, well, we used to get like 72 hours off on a weekend, you know.
Wow.
And you're only allowed to go 400 miles. Well, Cleveland is 620 miles from Norfolk. So we used to have to, we put down on our request that we're going to the YMCA in Pittsburgh. So if anything ever happened, you had to drag make sure you were in Pittsburgh.
Right.
You know. And a couple, what, you know, I mean, you could leave Norfolk and hitchhike home, and you'd be home in 12 hours, you know. Because usually, you know, most guys from the serve, people pick you up, especially if you're in uniform. They always give you a ride.
Really?
Know? So there's a lot of times I hitchhike home and come home. A couple of buddies just came with me, and one kid lived in Louisiana. He couldn't go home. And another guy, you know, lived in.
Yeah.
So people, you know, I mean, and then I would go up to New York City too on the weekend because I knew people up there from when I lived there.
Wow.
So I could go to New York, I could go to Cleveland, you know.
Yeah.
It was pretty nice, you know. I mean, it's
very neat. Yeah.
But you do a lot of hitchhiking, probably 100,000 miles in the time I was in.
Oh my gosh.
But
That
people,
was just while you were in service.
Yeah, people would pick you up, you know, and they'd give you. Well, you didn't really have money for. You know, some of the guys had cars, but I never had. You know, I never made grade enough to get it. You know, the chief petty officer, I made E3 in 6 months, and the chief petty officer he didn't like me. Because I call him an effing lifer.
Oh.
This is your life, it isn't mine.
Yep.
You're staying, you can't handle it on the outside, I'm leaving here.
Oh.
So he hated my guts, so he would never let me go up for grade.
Oh.
But I did my job as good as I could, and I never, you know.
Did your time in there.
Yeah, did my time, because I agreed to do that, you know. And then about 30 days before I was ready to get out, they extended everybody in the military for 4 months on account of Vietnam.
Wow.
And they have a short timer's calendar. You have a calendar with 100 days on it, and you're crossing the days out. You know?
Yeah.
Just about everybody does. Well, I'm down to like 28 or 30 days. And I came aboard the ship, and they said, well, you've been extended on account of Vietnam. I said, no, I'm going home. No, you're not. Everybody's been extended. Well, the ship was in dry docks, and we slept in barracks. We didn't even have a job. I didn't have nothing to do because the ship was in. Once the ship's in dry dock, my job was to run the boats. So we really didn't have that. I said, well, the ship's in dry dock. Why don't I got to get extended? They said, well, it's all over the whole country. Every person in the military has a 4 month extension because we have to retrain the troops.
So what did you do for 4 months?
Nothing. I just collected my pay and
wow.
Slept.
You
and
just stayed there?
Yeah.
On the ship?
No, we were in barracks.
Okay.
Because the ship was in dry dock.
it.
Once the ship goes in dry dock, then they rip all the start, they cut this, fix that, do that. So we were, like I said, I don't know why I have to,
Yep. Yeah.
So it was about 2 weeks before I was supposed to get out after the 4 months. And they said, well, the ship's done. We're going to have to go on a shakedown cruise down to the Caribbean. And I said, I am not going on no shakedown cruise. There's no way in hell you're going to get me to get on that ship because that shakedown cruise lasts 3 months. And I got 2 weeks left. So I complained and yelled and screamed, so they finally let me out like a week earlier,
Really? Then you got to go home.
Yeah. Now, they said that, because I had hurt my back and stuff, that I had to see the doctor and get all checked out. I said, I'll pass on that. I'm leaving. I'm getting out. And they wanted me to ship over and join them for 6 more years.
Oh, my gosh.
And then I kind of laughed at them and said, well, no, thanks, but no thanks. Because once you're in the Gator Navy, which is the amphibian, you're in that. That's it. And if I'd have been on a cruiser or a carrier or something nicer, but I wasn't. So I said, no, thanks. And it was funny because when I left Norfolk, it was like when they left Sodom and Gomorrah, and they never looked back. I never looked back. I left half my stuff down there.
Wow.
I had my pea coat, my clothes, and my sea bag when I left. So.
Wow.
And I just never wanted to look back. I did my time.
Yep. Just done.
Done. I agreed to do it and did it. Because it was funny when I got out of the Navy. It was I went to Florida for 6 months, and then I came back home, and then I went back to New York. And I think more than anything, I learned how to hate things and hate people and hate everything, because I was always pretty much happy-go-lucky kid. And then,
Really?
so then I got out and started, drinking a lot, partying a lot, hating a lot,
What do you think maybe triggered that?
Triggered a lot of everything, When you're in the Navy, you have to be a kiss-ass. And if you're not, then you don't make out, and I could never do that. And it's just the way that people are and the way that things were, you start learning how to hate. And then when I got out, we started drinking and fighting and going to bars and then
Did you start work then afterwards at all?
oh yeah, I worked in a gas station.
Okay.
I worked in a gas. The guy I worked for was a veteran, and him and his son ran the gas station, and his son joined the Army.
Oh wow.
So then I took his son's place for 2 years,
And did his son return from the Army?
Pardon?
Did he return from service?
Yeah, 2 years later, and then while he was gone, I kind of ran. I was a head mechanic there and
Okay.
took care of the shop, and then he'd come in he used to come in at 10:30 in the morning, and then we'd get a couple cars in and we'd work on them, and then I worked from 10 till 4, and then most of the time I pull my car and work on it. We did a lot of drag racing back then.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I used to work on my car most of the time. Then when his son came back, him and I didn't get along too good, so.
Oh.
So then the guy across the street from the gas station had a sign company, and he said, well, why don't you come over and work for me, So I worked for him for 3 years.
And what city was this in? Was this in Florida?
Long Island, Baldwin,
Okay.
where they make pianos.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of drag racing, a lot of high rods back then. So we had fun building race cars and having fun and partying and doing what we did.
Yeah, that's very neat. So, you mentioned a little bit about how the service kind of affected your perspective on life and, with hatred, but what was maybe looking back, what was maybe the best part or your favorite place that you traveled or a memorable experience?
Probably Puerto Rico.
Really?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, that's when the ship was tied up to the dock for 3 months, and we didn't have a job, so we could just go party and hang out.
Just relax.
Yeah. Have a good
That's
time,
nice.
and then, I enjoyed a lot of that when we went different places. I didn't see a lot of sights, but it was.
But you got to go there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it was funny because my grandmother asked me if I had a girl in a report, and I told her I haven't been in a report yet. So it was pretty funny.
Did your family miss you when you were away?
Yeah. Well, my mom did, and my dad. They were separated by then,
Yeah.
So.
And where was your dad living at that
He
point?
lived in New York.
New York, and
my
your mom?
lived in Cleveland. Yeah.
Okay.
And then it was funny. It just things that happen in life and things that you do and see and like I said, I enjoyed some of the people, some of the things we did.
Yeah. Did you keep any type of journal or photo log or something like that?
No, I had a lot of stuff that I had, and when I went to Florida for 6 months, I got into a situation down there where I kind of had to leave, and I left a lot of stuff there because I was planning on coming back, and a lot of the stuff I left there,
And you never got it back?
No, I never went back down there. It was a good friend of mine and his wife. I lived with them.
Okay.
And he had a girlfriend, and then me and his wife kind of got together, and it was one of those situations.
One of those situations.
Yeah.
Yeah. You weren't going to be going back. Yeah.
No. It was. He was happy because he could keep his girlfriend, and she was happy because they could stay married. It was,
Right. Messy.
Right. So.
Yeah.
So I left and came back.
Yeah.
Came back to New York, and then met my first wife, and we had a baby, and got married, and we stayed together for about 3 years, and I got divorced. And,
So So what are some of maybe, do you have any life lessons that you took away from your service? Or that may be lessons you'd want to share and pass along to others, or?
I'm trying to think.
Yeah,
It's
no
not,
worries.
I mean, it's, well, if you're gonna go do something, like I said, I went in, I volunteered, and I did my duty, I did my job. You
Yep.
know, and, like I say, you had to be sort of a kiss ass, and I couldn't do that. I mean, but you can still do your job and be you without being that type of person. 'Cause
Right.
a lot of guys make rank because they're, you know, they're that type of person. I just couldn't be that way. But you can still be you and not try to be somebody else. And I was always trying to. It was always me. You know, I just couldn't do stuff like that. You know.
Right.
You know.
Definitely. Is there anything else that, well, actually, I should ask this first. Has the service impacted your feelings about war or the service in general? Do you have any reflections on your view of it?
I guess it'd be hard to tell. I mean,
Yeah.
I was young when I went in, and
Yeah.
you know, and I got out, and you know, the kids nowadays, they have no discipline, no, you know, you know, they couldn't make it a day there, you know, I mean, because they just don't, you know, and everything's too easy, and back then it was hard to do these things, you know, and, you know, I had quit school, so I only had an 8th grade education, you know, and then I was not very good at reading, you know, I was good at math, but I always figured I had street smarts rather than college smarts.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people with college smarts that don't have street smarts.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd rather have street smarts because that's where you're living. You're not, you know, once you do your time in college, you're gone. But,
Right.
you know, the books tell you this, but books don't know what to do, how to do it, and where to do it.
Yeah, that's very true.
You know, and you're better off, like I say, if you know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with school. I just couldn't get nothing out of it, you know.
That's very true. Well, is there anything else that you would like to add about your service or your time in the military and the Navy, and that you would like to add?
No, not like I said. I once I left, and you know, I mean, I never joined the VFW. I never got into a lot of military things with other people, and then. And in '75, they gave us a Vietnam veterans bonus for $500.
Oh, wow.
Everybody got a bonus, you know.
Wow.
But you know, I got married, got divorced, got married again, got divorced, and then, you know, it just, you know, my whole life was like a lot of hating and a lot of not, you know, not, you know, doing. And then one day I gave my life to Christ.
Wow.
It's been different since then, yeah.
When was that?
In '72.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
Life changing?
I
Wow.
I threw my cigarettes away that I was smoking. I burned my colors, and I was riding out on a motorcycle then. I burned my colors that night, and my attitude changed.
Wow.
And,
It maybe helped with the hatred that you were feeling?
well, it definitely helped, yeah.
Yeah.
It changed my attitude towards, because you can't go around hating everything and everybody all the time.
So then how long after that was that, after you left the service? 72?
It would have been like 6 years.
Wow.
6 years, 7 years after that. I mean, it was touch and go for a while because where I lived on Long Island, back then, after I came home, you know, you see all the guys from Vietnam, and you know, and then when you come home back then, the guys come home, you know, they would, you know, call them druggie burnouts and baby killers, and everybody doing drugs and this and that, you know, and a lot of it was true, but you know, when you know the guys I knew and the guys I talked to, they didn't know if they were going to see tomorrow. They didn't know if you could see, you know, So they'd be doing a lot of drugs and stuff. I mean, you know, and then they call them baby killers. Well, from one of the stories I was told, you could have a mama sign come up with hand grenades in there and walk up to the guys and pull the pins, and little kids would do that too. And they'd take out 4 or 5 or 6 guys. So they'd see some mama sign come up there and stay there, and she'd start walking, they'd shoot her. Or they'd shoot the kids. But come to find out that they had grenades in there, and they were, you know, these are the stories people don't tell you.
Right, right.
So the stuff that they did because they had to, you know. I had one of my buddies, he made E6 in 6 months, blood stripes, you know. Because you go out with your platoon, you come back, and he's the only one who came back. You know, a couple of times. See, people don't tell you stories like that, you know. They don't, you know. And you know, and then you got these kids that's, you know, peace, love, and you know, and you had Kent State, you know, where the national guys shot the guys, and I mean, it was a trying time back during Vietnam, you know. I mean, it really was. It was a trying time on everybody, you know. Mm-hmm. And the guys that served and came home, and one brother-in-law, he sent me a picture one time. He had 16 ears, left ears, around a chain around. That he had killed and cut their ears off.
Wow.
But these guys, like I said, they didn't know if they were going to see tomorrow.
Right.
You know, so.
They were just surviving.
Right. You know, I mean, these are the guys I met. The guys had trained. The guys had staked. You know.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, that's what I was doing, training them, trying to keep them alive. You know.
Yeah.
And maneuvers and stuff. Because I could never understand why we would hit the beach and the Marines would come off when there's no beaches in Vietnam.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, they had rivers and went up and down the rivers and stuff, you know.
Oh.
And I had a lot of my buddies came home and they just really don't want to talk about it. You know?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
We were there and that was it. And
Put
I
it behind
understand. I understand why they don't. You know.
You want to put it behind.
Yeah. We see the war movies, these things on TV, and people, oh, they couldn't have done that. Well, they did a lot that more than that and worse.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, thank you so very much for coming in to share your story.
Well, I hope I could
with
share
us
it, you know.
today. Yeah.
You know, and the only other thing is I really never used the VA, my benefits and stuff, because I always felt that I didn't deserve it. Yeah. Because I felt the guys in country deserved it.
Well, you served.
Well, and I got laid off, and then I lost my health insurance, so then I had to start going to the VA. And once I went there, then I found out, well, you can get this, you can have that, you know, we'll do this, we'll do that, you know. But I never ever asked before because I just felt the guys that really needed it.
Well, we thank you so much for your service. So.
Thank you for having me here, and I hope I can help somebody, you know.
Yes, you have already. So your story will be up there at the Library of Congress, and again, we thank you.
Okay.